A controversial court ruling that would have forced taxpayers to pay for the gender reassignment surgery of a convicted murderer has been overturned. Back in 2012, federal court judge Mark Wolf ruled that the state of Massachusetts needed to comply with prisoner Michelle Koselik's request for the operation, saying failing to do so constituted cruel and unusual punishment, a violation of the Eighth Amendment. He was Robert Koselik when he murdered his wife Cheryl in 1990, a man who said he always knew he was trapped in the wrong body. Now known as Michelle, she told Spirit magazine in a telephone interview earlier this year, early prison life was tough.
Faggot, freak, stuff like that from staff and from other prisoners. I was relatively isolated, as I have been for much of my incarceration. There were people who were in disagreement with the way that I looked, the way that I was, the way that my voice sounded. I got disciplinary reports for using homemade makeup.
For years, Koselik was treated with hormones and electrolysis, but made the case that was not enough. And a federal court agreed, granting Koselik the right to a sex change operation. And despite political resistance, Koselik said the ruling was correct.
We don't go to prison for punishment. We come to prison as punishment. This is what a lot of people, even elected officials, don't understand.
Now a federal appeals court overturned the original ruling, with Judge Juan Torruella writing for the majority. We conclude that the district court erred and that the care provided to Koselik by the DOC does not violate the Eighth Amendment. Gay and lesbian advocates and defenders, which supported Koselik's suit, says they are appalled by this decision. Well, it's a controversial decision that has elicited a passionate response from people on both sides of the issue. Joining me now is Kari Hong. She's an associate professor of Boston College Law School who specializes in LGBT rights. Welcome back to Greater Boston, Kari.
Thank you.
So a lot of people are applauding this ruling. There was a lot of people who thought, the whole taxpayer funded gender reassignment just didn't sit right with them. Koselik has already been in prison since 1990, but you're not one of them. You think this should have gone forward. How come?
Yes. Well, on the issue of costs, Massachusetts has spent over $700,000 in litigation. The actual procedure was $25,000. So they've paid for it 28 times over, and that doesn't include the cost of the latest appeal. But more to the legal question. The legal question is, does the state of Massachusetts have, what type of medical care does the state of Massachusetts have to provide a sick prisoner? If it were a cancer patient, do they have to provide an aspirin to alleviate the symptoms of pain, or do they have to provide chemotherapy to deal with the underlying illness? The court said aspirin only is necessary. And this is different from every other federal court that has decided this issue. This is different from the European Union that's decided this issue, and this is different from the district court that heard 2 years of testimony.
Well, they're saying that this is adequate care that they've provided hormone treatment, hormone replacement therapy, they've provided other, cosmetic things for Koselik. They're saying that goes to the heart of it, because a statement by Andrea Capral this afternoon said that the lower district court had expanded the meaning of adequate care to cover this issue of the violation of the Eighth Amendment, and that she agrees with the appeals court that was an error.
Well, again, going back to the cancer analogy, the district court said that all of the medical doctors, all the credible medical doctors, found that you would have to have the sex reassignment surgery. That is the prevailing medical understanding of this condition. The only opposition to this was an expert hired by the Department of Corrections that was known to oppose all forms of sex reassignment surgery. The district court, who listened to that person's testimony, found them not credible. So for the court to overturn it is definitely of concern.
Going back to your cancer analogy, because we know through written reports and some conversations with former Speaker of the House, Sal DeMacy, he was diagnosed with cancer, and the state, it wasn't Massachusetts, I think it was Kentucky at the time, one of those states, waited a very long time, to the point where it may have cost him his life. I mean, he's still alive, but they waited so long that his disease progressed. So a prison situation, isn't about to jump to help any prisoner in a health situation. And as long as they're it's, there's sort of a good enough attitude?
Well, the Eighth Amendment requires more. First of all, there has to be a question of, is that a condition, is that treatment necessary, medically necessary? And on that, what is interesting is that the Massachusetts Department of Corrections and the majority decision agree that it is. Now, the difference is that the district court said the only reason why the warden did not offer this is because they were concerned with public ridicule and public outcry. There was no medical reason, there was no cost reason that was cited. And it appears that, according to the medical expert that exists in our understanding of the disease, there still is no medical reason to withhold it.
Well, I think she's public safety commissioner. Get my ear if that's correct now. But Andrea Cabral, in her statement this afternoon, did say that one of the big concerns was safety and security post-surgery, because they were not going to move Kosilek to a women's prison even after the surgery.
Well, and there were two dissenting judges who were very vociferous in their dissent. And what they said, the reason why they didn't find that convincing is that the prisoner has been living as a woman for 20 years.
Not totally.
Or for the last 11 years, she's been receiving hormonal treatment.
No,
and
but let's say she doesn't
sign.
have the female anatomy, and they're concerned once the anatomy changes that she may be a target.
And there was nothing in the evidence in a 2-year trial to actually support that. That she's been living as a woman, she has feminine attire, she has electrolysis, she has hormones. So she's feminine looking, and there's no shown harm to her. The other thing that's interesting is that the policy in Massachusetts that if there's someone who is living as a woman and commits a crime, that she would be placed in a women's prison. So it's inconsistent with how they would treat other prisoners.
Yeah, well, there's definitely, I'd say if I could read this underline, they're sort of denying the medical diagnosis. That's sort of what it comes down to, that this is a necessary procedure for this, disorder, if that's what you can call it.
Well, the medical community calls it a condition, a medical condition, the gender identity disorder. And the proper medical treatment, and the only known medical treatment is sex reassignment surgery. 5 doctors testified that to her. And what's interesting that those doctors were originally commissioned by the state department, or but by the state of Massachusetts to determine whether this was needed or not.
So wait a second, can this go to the Supreme Court?
Well, it can be, because there are there's a Fourth Circuit and Seventh Circuit that came to opposite conclusions.
All right. It's a really fascinating case. All right.
It definitely is.
Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.